and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have seats available for anybody wishing to grab a seat. Please feel free to do so. We're set, Dan?
All set.
Thank you, Dan. First thing is, anybody who has not done so and wishes to speak tonight, please sign in with the clerk. Because once we start calling people, she will read from the list of people signing in. Everyone speaking will have 5 minutes to speak on the budget. And please keep comments confined to the budget, since this is the public hearing for that. Anybody that may have written comments and may not want to come to the podium, they can certainly submit them with the clerk, and they will be entered into the record as well. I ask, and the board asks to refrain from any applause so we can get to the next speaker, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to speak tonight, and we certainly want to allow you the opportunity to do so. So having said that, first we're going to go through the quick attendance. We have Board President Angles is on the line on the phone. Alderman Simonetti is also on phone. We have Alderman Balamasi, Alderman Durante, myself, McPherson, Simons, McKinnon, and Costi. So we're all set there. Will the clerk please read the first speaker to come to the podium? Also, too, when you come to the podium, please speak clearly into the microphone so that the system can pick you up. Thank you.
Molly Mo.
Oh, also, too, Alderman Simons is going to be the timekeeper. So again, it's 5 minutes per speaker. Thank you very much for your cooperation. You ready, Alderman Simons?
Yeah, you want to mention about previous thing?
Yeah, well, also too, if anybody they agree with the previous speaker, you're certainly welcome to say that. Or if you have something new to add, you're welcome to do so as well. With that, will you call the first speaker, please?
Molly Mo.
Hello, my name is Molly Mo, and I live at 23 Shag Park Road. I am speaking again in front of this board to implore you to fully fund the Board of Education budget, not the proposed version by the current mayor. I've been in education for the past 15 years. First as a teacher and now as a school counselor. I've worked in inner city, suburban, and rural districts. The needs are the same throughout. Good quality, faculty and staff, low class sizes in order to accommodate the ever-growing needs of the individual child, and familial involvement in order to collectively support the child in a positive and collaboration between school and family. I currently have 2 children in the Shelton school system, and both attend Elizabeth Shelton Elementary. Excuse me. It's not only your obligation to listen to my plea, but truly act in the best interest of our children. The best interest is to vote to fully fund this budget. The consequences would be dire if the mayor's proposed budget is approved and not the original BOA request. Our school principal, Ms. Weber, has requested 1 additional classroom teacher to accommodate the ever-growing enrollment at Elizabeth Shelton. We are currently the most enrolled elementary school in town, and if that request is not fully funded, class sizes will be maxed out. My daughter, who will be in the 4th grade next year, will be in a class size filled with 31 students. My son, who will be a 1st grader next year, will be in a class of 29. That's absolutely ludicrous to have that many 6, 7, 8, 9+ children in a classroom for 6+ hours. This year, I'm a room parent for my son's kindergarten class. I volunteer throughout the year, and I'm almost scared to say what an amazing job this teacher has done, given the class that she currently has of kindergartners to manage and educate. I can't imagine that class adding 5 more next year, what that will look like. For reference, 2nd grade will increase to 29, 3rd grade will increase to 30, and as mentioned prior, 4th will increase to the max out 31. How much valuable learning will occur with those maxed out sizes? Several studies have shown that lower class sizes greatly benefit overall student achievement. Lower class sizes offer the opportunity for the teacher to be able to differentiate the various learning styles of students, There are less negative behaviors to manage because the student ratios will remain lower. Students have more one-on-one interactions with teacher and a positive result with more individualized attention. Students truly feel like an individual learner and not just a number within the classroom. Isn't it our responsibility as parents, educators, community members, and elected board officials to invest in our children within our community? Because aren't they the future? When a simple budget request can't be fulfilled to serve the basic needs, supports, and resources of our education system, what message does that send to our children and the school staff? This budget is not requesting anything above and beyond. It's simply requesting the bare necessities of what they need to function and remain competitive as a competitive school district that families will want to consider when moving into a town. Please answer that call and fully fund this budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate Kutosh.
I Kate Kutesh, 275 Ridley Road. As most of you know, I'm a member of the Board of Education. On April 5th, Mr. Serenich presented the scenario that with our current enrollment allotment as recommended by the mayor, there could be between 60 to 65 positions lost. I want to provide you with a concrete example of what our school system could see happen if we, the Board of Ed, are not fully funded. Not saying this is the way it will play out, but it could. 60 positions. Let's just say, for the sake of you actually picturing what it could look like, that 20 of them are elementary teachers, 4 from each of 5 schools. That eliminates a classroom of 25 kids at 4 different grade levels, split between them, possibly 2 other classrooms left at that grade level that are already at 25, if not one of those higher numbers stated in Elizabeth shown. Doing the math, 25 plus an additional 12 means 37 children in a class at each of 4 different grade levels. Picture that, 37 kids in classrooms that are already crowded with 25. No room left for whole group meeting, learning stations and the like that have become a part of the teaching learning model. Think again, 37 bodies in one classroom. Do we want that? Our students, teachers, and staff deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ludwig Spinelli.
Ludwig Spinelli, 14 Willard Road. You have a very difficult job before you, having sat in the Board of Aldermen. This is one of the most important things you do, set the budget. It's not a Democratic budget, not a Republican budget. It's the budget that the kids need. You've seen the signs all over town. I don't think I need to remind you how important it is, but even from an economic perspective, ask any realtor, what do people look at when they want to move into a town? If we are going to be at the bottom of the pupil expenditure, it's going to hurt the real estate values and the value of everybody's home, those who have invested in it. Just look at the same house in Monroe, the same house in Trumbull. Why are they worth more than Shelton? Shelton's going to get a reputation that it doesn't deserve because we're so focused on trying to keep taxes low that we're actually hurting the integrity of the school system. I ask you to find the funds, fully fund the board request. I don't think it's excessive. If they do the right thing, I know it's not easy, and we can't depend on the state of Connecticut to send money down, as you may have heard. I would not bank on that. So again, I don't want to take the full 5 minutes. You'll hear many other people, but please, this is the best thing you could do. Most important thing is to do it for the children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ellen Thomas.
Jennifer Thomas. I'm 7 years old. I am in first grade at Blue Hill School. I really like it when there are only 20 kids in my class, not 30. I learned so much more that way. Thank you. Good night. Or Mrs. Marks is the best.
Thank you very much.
Caitlin Jerkowski.
How do I follow that? Caitlin Turkowski, 58A Wheeler Street. Good evening. I'm here tonight as a very concerned mother to 2 little girls just starting their educational journey in Sheldon. My first daughter is in kindergarten, and my second will be entering kindergarten in the fall. I also happen to be a kindergarten teacher myself in a neighboring district. I was born and raised in Sheldon, attended Mohegan, SIS, SHS, and I've always been proud to call Sheldon my home until recently. When COVID started, there was this public outcry valuing, supporting, and defending teachers. Teachers were given awards, being recognized, and it was as if suddenly we were seen. Now what? The implications of this budget not being passed is truly a slap in the face to the teachers who work tirelessly with who is the future of this city. And what will the future of the city look like if we don't support our schools? Proposing cuts and expanding class sizes sets the tone that in this city, we don't value teachers. We do not care that teaching 31 kids in an elementary setting is outrageous and impossible for one human being, because we don't just teach. We nurture, we raise, we care. And as a kindergarten teacher, I can tell you firsthand that a class of 25 is detrimental to student growth and achievement. That's a foundational year setting kids up for future success. These 4 and 5-year-olds go from daycares and preschools with 5+ caregivers in a small educational setting to a class of 25 with 0 extra paraeducator support. And then these superhero teachers are required to make them read, write, do math, all while making sure they're happy, fed, and most importantly, safe. That's unrealistic. I urge you to spend just a day in a 4th grade classroom of 31 kids and tell me afterwards that all educational, social, emotional, and basic needs were met. We are falling behind neighboring districts rapidly, and there's no secret the reason. Our students deserve better, our teachers deserve better, and I hope more than anything that one day I can say, I am again a proud parent of kids in the Sheldon school system. Put the politics aside, think of your own children. What would you want for them? Thank you.
Thank you.
Marissa Memley.
Hi, Marissa Memley, 311 Meadow Ridge Road. With proposed budget cuts to the existing budget, I'm speaking specifically from the perspective of a fellow educator and an ESS parent. I currently have a 1st grade student attending there and a rising kindergartner in the near future. I've been in the field of education for over 15 years in various roles. I believe beginning the school year with unmanageable class sizes can only result in a lack of learning for our most vulnerable learners. It will also damage the relationship of veteran teachers who are set up for failure from the beginning. A question I asked you to consider: what happens when class sizes reach max capacity in the middle or beginning of the year? Redistricting our youngest impressionable learners with reasons they will never understand. It will only disrupt the academic and social emotional well-being of our innocent children. With the increasing amount of apartments that we're seeing in the downtown area, which is primarily districted for ESS, we're starting the year with above average class sizes, only creating unrealistic expectations. From an administrator's standpoint, these budget cuts will force principals and other supervisors to make decisions that are not best for our children and potentially damaging for the overall morale of their buildings. Food for thought. At ESS, the class sizes for 3rd and 4th grade are highest going into next year. These are students that learned how to read through a screen during COVID. I'm not sure how many of you frequent the buildings. I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I'm in various classrooms ranging from pre-K to 12th grade. on a daily basis. I see average class sizes of 17 to 22 children. And even that is too much. Now take that a step further and add at least 5 to 10 more kids. Pure insanity. There's no possible way all of our kids will be met daily. I urge you to picture those young and impressionable minds when making your final decisions. And please, please fully fund the district's budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Monica Peterson?
Hi, Monica Peterson, 10 Brook Pine Drive. I'm a retired teacher from a Connecticut school district, and I'm also the vice chairperson of the Shelton Democratic Town Committee. And as such, I urge you to pass the budget for the school district as proposed by the Board of Education. The children of Shelton deserve no less. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Eckler?
Good evening, Dr. Michelle Eckler, 17 Grove Street. I come to you this evening in support of the Board of Education budget, and I call upon you as our elected officials to do the same. I have two very important jobs in my life. I am the mother of two wonderful special needs children here in the city of Shelton. I am also a public educator of 22 years with both classroom and administrative experience. I have 4 degrees, including a doctorate in curriculum teaching, learning, and leadership. I do believe that my experience as a public school educator at a variety of levels gives me a very unique perspective on what it means to be part of running a school district. Never in the history of my administrative career, 13 years of the 22, have I ever sat in a meeting like this and heard anyone say they're not going to give the schools money that they have. I've only ever been told that the well had run dry. Never have I been made to feel like students and children of the town that I worked in were so unimportant that we couldn't find money to better fund their education. And I worked in a school district for 10 years that was an extremely low income school district with a very high mill rate. What I'm really here to talk to you tonight, though, is to tell you a story of a mom who wanted nothing more than to get the best education for her children. I am also a Shelton High School graduate, class of 97. I remember my years in school as some of my best memories. My husband and I lived in a different town when our first son, Richie, was born in 2014, and we made the decision to relocate our family to Shelton for its reputation as an excellent school district and specifically for its pre-K program at the time. Richie had a speech delay, and shortly before he began pre-K, he was also diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. We were so excited that the Shelton pre-K program would provide him with access to his typical peers while also being able to meet his very distinct and special needs. Every single pre-K teacher that worked with Richie in 2017 and 2018 poured their heart and soul into making his experience nothing short of amazing. When we learned of his placement in the Alternative Learning Center, which was then housed at Sunnyside, we were a little nervous, but excited. Richie had 3 amazing years at Sunnyside with 2 different teachers who honestly deserve sainthood, as well as some pretty phenomenal paraprofessionals. Now at Elizabeth Shelton, Richie is thriving in the ALC. Richie's little brother Luke will follow him next year into the ALC as he has developmental delays as well. Luke also had some pretty amazing teachers and paraprofessionals in the pre-K program, and his language has blossomed this school year. And though most of the time we still can't understand what he's saying, when his words do come out, he'll definitely be quite the chatterbox. Why do I share these stories of my children with you? Because failing to fully fund the Board of Education budget will directly impact both of my children in ways that I hope none of you can even begin to comprehend. While neither of my boys are fully mainstreamed, any kind of cut will mean sending my autistic 9-year-old into a 4th grade classroom of 31 students at Elizabeth Shelton School when he needs to be in the mainstream room. Richie's ability to function in a large group setting like that will be low at best, and he will miss out on critical time with his non-disabled peers that are required by his IEP, because more than likely, he will melt down and have to leave the room. If you've never experienced an autistic meltdown, you should consider yourself lucky. Not being able to help your child in a situation like that is terrifying, and any cut to the school system has potential to make those meltdowns for my son more common. Cuts will also directly affect my son Luke. Kindergarten class sizes of 25 will be the size if the cuts happen at Elizabeth Shelton. And they're not ideal in any situation, let alone sending a child with limited language into one of those classrooms. The goal for Luke is to get him to turn into that little chatterbox we are hoping for, not to stifle his voice with too many other little voices in one room. I know I'm not alone in saying that it isn't an option anymore to not fully fund the Board of Education budget. There are just too many stories like those of my children where kids will be hurt by cuts. And as our elected Board of Aldermen, you have a chance to make it right this year. So I implore you to fully fund the Board of Education budget for the 23-24 school year and give our children a fighting chance at a high-quality education. Thank you.
Thank you. Please refrain from applause so we can get the next speaker here.
Jessica Myers,
My name is Jessica Myers, I'm at 27 Country Ridge Drive. I don't really have anything prepared. I just wanted to ask for your support to fully fund the budget, the Board of Ed budget. Thanks.
Thank you.
Megan Hall,
Megan Hall, 12 Captain's Watch. I also don't have anything prepared. I just urge you all to support and fully fund the Board of Ed and support smaller class sizes.
Thank you. Before the next speaker, we still have some seats available if anyone wishes to have a seat. Okay, Don.
Mark Holden,
Good evening, Mark Holden, 275 Soundview Avenue. It's important that you provide adequate funding for education to maintain or improve our student achievement. People are talking about class sizes, and that's certainly a big part of it, because if you have too many kids crammed in a class, the teacher will not be able to give adequate attention to each of the students. Here's some historical data based on the state standardized tests for student achievement in Shelton. In 2014, 2015, we were ranked 76th in the state for student achievement. The following year, 2015 to 16, we improved to 57th in the state. In 2016, 2017, we improved to 51st in the state. In 2017 to 18, we improved to 36th in the state, which was within 0.2% of the board's goal of making the top quartile for student achievement. Budget constraints cost us 10 staff members in 2018 to 19, and it was a tipping point, and we dropped to 66th. In 2019 to 2020, the BOE had a budget that cost them 18 teachers. There was no testing that year, so we don't know exactly how it affected it. The 2021 budget resulted in a loss of 23.5 people, and our student achievement dropped from 66th 2 years prior to 83rd. 21 to 22, we have a lot of federal grant money available, and it allowed us to maintain staff and even hire some much needed counselors. We moved up 12 positions to 71st. And just like in the early years when we had a good jump in student achievement, we again had some schools recognized as schools of distinction. Shelton has a tradition of hiring great teachers and administrators who genuinely care. But teachers who are no longer in the classroom because of budget constraints can no longer help. Because of the COVID funding cliff, the BOE needs a larger than normal increase to maintain what they have. You can blame the federal government if you want, but if you don't pick up the slack, we stand to lose dozens of teachers. And that's going to hurt student achievement tremendously. High taxes hurt property values, but the quality of the school system also has a dramatic impact on the value of our homes. Your job is to find a way to make Shelton the best place it can be. And that means giving the schools the resources that they need in order to allow our students to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't read your last name.
Hands.
Tom Hennis, 11 Hidden Pond Lane. We're once again here this evening to ask the Board of Aldermen and Mayor Moretti to do something that hasn't been done in quite some time in the city, and that is fully fund the proposed Board of Education budget. In the last meeting, there seemed to be some confusion about what fully funding a budget means, so I'll explain. The BOE developed and presented the projected costs for status quo budget next year, and taxpayers are asking the city not to cut it, not make changes to it, just simply fund it. That's what it means to fully fund. You would think the importance of education is a simple decision. When I discuss this individually with some of you, I continue to hear accusations about how the BOE improperly spends their money on other political nonsense. But here's the reality. Our classroom sizes have skyrocketed with student to teacher ratios of 0.9 to 1. We have old technology and not enough mental health support staff in our schools at a critical time in this country. It's not like the BOE has taken advantage of the situation, considering over the past 5 years, the city has undercut their previous status quo budgets year after year by $9.2 million in aggregate, resulting in the elimination of 52 educators from our school system and essentially placing the situation we face here today. As a taxpayer, I no longer want excuses. Continually hear that no parents show up to meetings at all to support education. This past year, we've seen rooms packed with people here representing education. Can I see a raise of hands right now who actually does not want to support education in this room?
Excuse me, can you address the board, please?
Okay, I know you guys won't raise your hands, so
We can't, we're supposed to listen to you give this
Okay.
speech, but
okay, I know where you stand, so. But either way, I want you to do your job. I understand these are volunteer positions, and again, thank you for your service, but you're not running a lemonade stand here. You are all elected officials who make critical decisions for our city, and a level of accountability comes along with that responsibility. I'm not going to sit here and regurgitate all the reasons why we need proper funding. The parents have done an excellent job explaining that over the past year. You are well informed, and it's now up to you as to whether or not you truly care about education. With the election looming, it's imperative for many of you to get this right, as myself and a lot of my fellow Republicans facing this issue are closely watching the outcome. There's no question that we can figure out how to meet the status quo budget. Financially, it's possible and can be done. Whether we use grants, general surplus funds, or other methods to get there, we can make it happen. We can somehow manage to keep taxes flat during historic inflation levels. We can easily figure out a way to get this done as well. Thank you.
thank you.
Jen Martinez.
I am Jennifer Martinez, 15 Tree Line Road. I have 3 children at Mohegan, and I actually recently resigned from Shelton Public Schools this past March. One of the major reasons why I resigned was because of the lack of resources Shelton Public Schools had. Our schools are understaffed and filled with outdated technology. Students have desktops in their computers that don't even run the programs they need because they're still outdated. I challenged the board to visit all the schools in Shelton, talk to the staff, hear their concerns. Shelton has lost many teachers this past year and will continue to lose teachers if they do not provide the teachers and staff with the resources they need. If Shelton wants to be a great city, it needs to invest in the future. The future of the city of Shelton is sitting in the classrooms of Mohegan, Booth Hill, Long Hill, Sunnyside, Elizabeth Shelton, Perry Hill, Shelton Intermediate, and Shelton High School. Please fund our board. Please fund our budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt McGee.
Matt McGee.
That my friend John.
Hey, hey guys, how you doing? So listen, I didn't prepare anything because I think you guys know where I stand. Matt McGee, 312 Street. I got involved about 4 or 5 years ago now, fighting for our schools as a student. I'm still here because I care. So I just wanted to read 3 little things, did some research I did before I came here, maybe yesterday, maybe the rest of it, who knows. So anyways, first piece of information is actually what the mayor had in his hand when he gave his budget address. And it talks about the enrollment history of Shelton Public Schools. And as you guys probably know, enrollment has dropped to his and your credit by about gonna say about 500 students since the 2014-15 school year. Now, my next piece of information, though, is something that piece of paper did not have, and that is the total special education enrollment. For those of you who don't know, special education students typically cost anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount of educating a regular education student. And that has increased in Shelton over the last 9 years by 168. So I typically hear from certain friends that, oh, the enrollment has dropped, so why do they need more money? Well, that precisely there is your reason why. Last thing I do want to read off as a statement of fact, couple of the class sizes as they currently are. Now, again, I'm sure you've seen this, maybe you haven't talked about it publicly, I will. So in Booth Hill, the kindergarten classes, we have class 1, 24 students, class 2, 24 students, class 3, 24 students. Grade 1, Booth Hill, 2 classes, 27 students, class 2, 27 students. Grade 4, class 1, 24, class 2, 28, class 3, 29. 29. Elizabeth Shelton School, grade 4, 27, 26, 25. Long Hill, grade 4, 24, 25, 25. Grade 3 in Mohegan School, 26, 26, 24. This is all currently, by the way. Sunnyside School, kindergarten, class 1, 26, class 2, 28. I cannot remember, I haven't, 21, I was in school a few years ago, not that long ago, a few years ago. I do not remember an elementary school ever having a class over 25 students. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misremembering, but this seems like a new phenomenon for us as a community. And I don't know. I mean, if you guys want to take a vote and you want to cut 2.5 million from the schools, by all means, if you can go to sleep at night and then wake up the next morning and look yourselves in the mirror and be fine, then by all means, vote the way you want to vote. But if I were you, I would not be very okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha Parkins.
Martha Harkins, 15 Serene Drive, Shelton, Connecticut. Thank you to those Board of Aldermen members who took the time to respond to my emails. I attended the recent Board of Aldermen budget workshop. During the meeting, it was mentioned that many emails and phone calls have been received encouraging you to increase the funding allocated to education in order to fully fund the education budget. Please take a moment to look around the room at the strong presence here tonight in support of fully funding the budget. The people here are a reflection of the importance of education to the citizens of Shelton. As was mentioned during the Board of Aldermen budget workshop, you are voting on behalf of your constituents. Your constituents have spoken. They want the education allocation to be increased. I look forward to your vote on May 25th on behalf of your constituents.
Thank you.
Melissa Dario.
My name is Melissa Dario. I live on 7 Hazel Court. I have a daughter going into 2nd grade and a son going into kindergarten this fall at Booth Hill. I stand before you today with the same concerns I had a few months ago when I spoke. I want to say I do not agree with Mayor Loretti's budget proposal. It blows my mind why the school system get undercut each passing year, and the mayor doesn't seem to think it's a problem. The need is even greater this year than the years before due to the fact that the grant money has ended. We need to keep the teachers we have, plus the additional teachers, paraprofessionals, and counselors. We are asking for you to keep our schools functioning at standard levels. The superintendent, Ken Cernich, gave a great presentation to the board explaining why the Shelton Public Schools need this money. It's not a want, but a need. There's nowhere else to pull from, and as a result, if we are underfunded, we will lose the teachers we need. It couldn't have been laid out any clearer. For those of you who are still on the fence about class size, let me tell you, class size matters. To have 29 or 30 kids in a classroom is not okay. To bring it down to having 27 or 28 kids in a classroom is not okay either. I have had the opportunity to spend some time inside my daughter's classroom. There was minimal disruption from kids leaving the classroom in and out for extra help. That was something that an alderman had said that he heard was a reason why he didn't think class size was the problem, but maybe disruption in the classroom. I didn't find that to be the case. But there is disruption when the kids on a daily basis cannot easily move around their classroom, their own classroom, and cannot even sit on a carpet all together as a class, missing out on the extra attention from their teacher, which is very important. I sat in on my daughter's classroom in the beginning of the school year this fall for back to school night. You could not easily move around the classroom with a sea of desks in your way. The teacher said not all the kids could get on the carpet together, so some had to stay back at their desks. This is where my daughter spent her day trying to stay focused with all the noise and chaos that is sure to have been happening around her with 30 kids in it. I don't know about you, but I work more efficiently in an open, organized space than a closed and crowded space. How are children supposed to get the education they need in an overcrowded and underfunded system? Repeating what I said at the last meeting, even under the best of circumstances, kids can fall behind. But under these circumstances, we are challenging fate. Kids will fall through the cracks and not getting the attention they need and deserve. This is wrong. Mayor Loretti speaks of when he spoke about his budget proposal, he spoke about 30 years ago when he was first elected about how great kids have done back then and what they were able to accomplish in their adult lives now. But this is not 30 years ago. This is today. We have to live in the present, not 15 years ago, not 5 years ago, today. The needs of the children is different now, especially going through the pandemic. To think what was acceptable 30 years ago would still be acceptable today is absurd. Nothing is the same. We need to adjust the time to the times and the needs of our children in today's world, not what may have worked 30 years ago. Somebody said, I don't understand the signs. Fully fund the Board of Ed budget. Well, it means we need this money that has been proposed to you so our schools can run efficiently and our children can get the best education they deserve. Once again, I'll say the school and staff deserve better. The families that live here deserve better. And most importantly, the children deserve way more.
Thank you.
Diane Meyer.
Diana Meyer, 56 Maple Lane. I'm sure most of you know that I am a proud member of the Board of Ed, along with my colleagues here tonight. And what I wanted to talk to you about first was our last finance meeting, which I thank Mr. Costi and Mr. Anglais on the phone for attending. At that meeting, we were discussing the overage of our budget this year. And my new colleague, Jim Feehan, who's new to our Board of Ed, was flabbergasted that we were running such a high overage. And he questioned our superintendent and even afterwards continued to ask questions because he couldn't understand, being a member of the Stratford Board of Ed for so many years, how we were running our budget that way. And we had to explain to him that last year, the board, that's the way the Board of Aldermen set the budget, that they would cover our overages. So I started to think about I'm not sure what you have planned for this year, but what would happen if you do that this year? If you give us some money and then say, don't worry, we'll cover the overages. Well, this is an election year. And those of you sitting here tonight may not be here next year when we run that overage. We may have a different mayor, as a matter of fact. So my concern is if you do that again, that you'll all be gone and there'll be a new set of people in here and that might not fly with the new people. So I want you to really think carefully about how you're going to structure the budget this year. The other thing I want to talk about is something that Mr. Hanas had brought up. At the budget workshop last week, I wasn't able to come, but I did hear there was discussion about a lack of transparency with the Board of Ed, as well as mismanagement of funds. Unfortunately, the minutes aren't out yet, so I couldn't read that, but in further discussion with other people, I hear it seems to be a recurring theme when Board of Ed members don't attend your meetings, that there's lack of transparency, there's mismanagement of funds. And I have to say, it was hurtful, it was disappointing as Board of Ed members, because I think we're the most transparent department of the city. Mr. Saranich is here, his right-hand man, our finance director is here, who has frequent conversations with City Hall. Mr. Saranich and Mr. Anglaise, I know, get together frequently. Mr. Saranich talks to the mayor. We presented a 3-ring binder to you in a 3.5 meeting about our budget. Our meetings in finance are open to all of you to attend. I don't know how much more we could be transparent, and if you think that's an issue, Mr. Saranich, Mr. Heffelfinger are here tonight. I'm sure they'll be glad to discuss it with you. And as far as mismanagement of money, I have to say the same thing. We are an open book to you. You had questions, Mr. Saranich answered them this week. So if anything, if you come away with anything tonight, please, you have to change the narrative. Maybe before, as far as the mismanagement or the lack of transparency, but I think now that is not true. And I really hope in the future that you come out of this, that we still have this collaboration and that this mismanagement and transparency stops here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Alba.
Hello, good evening. My name is Debbie Apple. I live at 11 Cornhill Road here in Shelton. I'm a product of the Shelton Public Schools, class of 79. My children and my husband are also graduates where we all received an excellent education. I've been an educator with the Shelton Public Schools for 23 years. I started at Sunnyside School. I was at Lafayette School, and then when that closed, I came to Elizabeth Shelton School, where I am a special education teacher. I work pulling students into my classroom to educate them in small groups with that definition being challenged. And I also work collaboratively in general ed classrooms, 2 of them 2nd grade and a 4th grade. And we have 8 or 9 students in those classrooms, and those classrooms all have the upper 20 students in them. And that's this year. I come here to ask you to fully fund the proposed budget, which I fully support, and I hope we make the right decision with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Coleman.
Good evening, Eric Coleman, 48 Congress Avenue. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just here to request full funding of the board of ed.
Thank you.
Kathy Owen.
Kathy Owen. One Waverly Road. I've been a teacher in Shelton for 35 years. And I've been on the Board of Education for 14 years, serving the last 4 years as your chairperson. A few weeks ago, something I think to be very important stood out in an article published in both the Connecticut Post and the Herald. The article told of the Board of Aldermen's generous donation of $20,000 to the robotics team to help defray the cost of their participation in the world's competition to be held in Houston. City officials have been so supportive of many school endeavors, the science fairs, pay to participate, robotics, Perry Hill and Shelton Intermediate School outdoor gardens, to name a few. We are so appreciative of the support, honestly. But if success is rewarded, as stated in the media, and I quote the comment made at that Board of Aldermen meeting, this is one of those things where we reward success. Then should not our school budget be rewarded for its success, especially over the last 2.5 years, 2+ years? This year, 4 out of our 5 elementary schools were recognized by the State Department of Education as schools of distinction. Additionally, this year, Shelton High School has been fully accredited for the first time in more than 10 years. We now have highly successful learning programs at our K-8 schools with the purchasing of Wit and Wisdom and the Eureka Math programs. Our Shelton High School graduation rate demonstrates further success with a graduation rate of 88%. And just last week, well, actually it's a few weeks ago now, one of our Shelton High School sophomore students was one of 4 winners
of the Ernie D. Matea Emerging Artist Award at the Palace Theater in Stamford for his one-act play. More than 70 students from Connecticut entered the contest, and I should mention that it was his language arts teacher that encouraged him to write and submit his piece. The above-mentioned successes of our school system are only a sampling of many more that I could list. However, it is imperative to note that part of this success was due to the ARP and ESSER dollars, COVID relief monies. We received from 20 to 23. This approximately was $7 million. This money will be totally expended by this June. How will we continue to succeed if we are not given the money we ask for and obviously need? I am appreciative of the amount the mayor has indicated in his budget, but I hope that our elected city officials will reward our success with a fully funded budget to ensure this path of success we have demonstrated. If success is measured for the achievement of desired results and is the positive consequence of one's achievement, then I wholeheartedly believe that our educational system should be rewarded for all the positives that have been accomplished thus far. I believe our elected city officials are intelligent, and I also believe that they want the best education for our kids. And I am hopeful that, well, you will act accordingly. Thank you for all you do for our city and hopefully what you continue to do for our school system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ava Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ava Johnson. I'm a 9 years old, a dedicated third grader at Elizabeth Shelton School and a proud Shelton resident. Please raise your hand if you are a teacher or an educator who currently works with students or a retired educator. Thank you for your service and happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all the awesome and caring teachers out there. Well, if you did not raise your hand, you probably can't fully comprehend the work and what it takes to educate today's kids. Let me tell you, while we are brilliant, talented, and compatible of doing incredible things, we also have lots of needs. In this order, for our teachers and administrators to do their jobs efficiently, they must have the resources that they need to be successful along with a reasonable classroom size. Can you imagine teaching 30 fourth graders all day? It is not fair to our teachers and to the kids. Research says that larger classes are proven to make it more difficult for the teachers to set and enforce behavioral expectations, monitor students, and pay individual attention to each student. Larger class sizes lead to more disorder in the classroom, which ultimately affects student learning. Is that what our politicians here want? I don't believe that's the Shelton way or our mission. I see many new businesses and stores in town. I also see new construction and development growing. I'm positive that this will bring lots of money to our town, and we should invest the tax money in the future. The kids of Shelton who will soon be business owners, firefighters, doctors, and teachers, and much, much, much more. I, Ava Johnson, promise to make the most of my educational journey. This is an important decision, Shelton. Do you believe me? Please support me. My teacher and the Shelton Public Schools, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Sarah Wilbur.
Good evening, Sarah Wilbur, 37 Canfield Drive. I had actually previously sent in comments to be read tonight as I was traveling for work and didn't think I'd make it back here in time, but I'm extremely grateful for my very speedy Uber driver that got me directly here for JFK. So I was able to make it here in time. I attended all of the Board of Education budget workshops and spoke at various Board of Ed and Board of Alderman meetings, showing my support for funding the Board of Education budget. I have also spoken with many of you individually. I, along with other parents, put up yard signs reading, "Fully fund the Board of Education." It appears some are questioning the term. Fully fund the Board of Education means do not take away from the Board of Ed request. All items requested are essential. I can appreciate there is still a need for negotiation, that some costs are variable, and that the state may fund additional items. I recognize the final line item may not be 80,371,637 as requested by the Board of Ed. But just ask that the requested items are funded. It will be detrimental if they are not, and the Board of Ed is forced to reduce staff. I can also appreciate you have to put forth a balanced budget, and the mayor's recommended budget is $131,128,272. The Board of Ed budget request falls $3,112,099 short of the mayor's recommended budget. I implore you to review every line item, compare prior year's budget to actuals. Can particular line items be reduced? If the city cannot put forth additional funds to fund the budget request, the Board of Ed should not be one of the only line items affected. As elected officials of the city, I expect you will do what is right for all of your constituents and not simply agree with the mayor's recommendation. I expect you to perform your own due diligence and base your recommendations on facts. Regardless of the outcome of the budget, I demand that you provide thoughtful justification for your decisions and recommendations. You have many taxpayers' eyes on you, especially during an election year. I encourage you to do the right thing and appropriately fund the Board of Ed budget request. Thank you.
Shannon Lynn.
Hi, Shannon Lynn, 179 Meadow Street. I was not planning on speaking today, actually. I crossed my name off the list earlier. But I feel like there's one more piece that I wanted to say before we leave today. As an educator, I'm fully listening to all the concerns of funding the board's budget for educational purposes, and I agree with them all. But as a mother of two, I want to speak on behalf of the safety concerns of my children if you do not fully fund this. My daughter is a first grader at Elizabeth Shelton, and my son will be in kindergarten soon enough. When I send them off to school, I trust the teachers and the staff to support them and care for them and keep them safe. However, my fear from the events going on in this crazy world is that sometimes it's hard to put them on the bus and let them go in the morning. I ask you to think about how these teachers with 25+ children that are very young, and have no idea what they're doing, what they're going to do in a lockdown, what they're going to do in shelter in place, or if it's not a drill, what do you do with 37-year-olds? How do you keep them safe? What do you do? Not only does this budget allow, if you don't pass this budget, it doesn't allow for the best education, but it allows for our children not to be safe and for those innocent lives as well. I urge you to please do what is best for everyone, so that everyone that is impacted by our floods can fully fund the budget.
Thank you.
Ellie Maynard.
My name is Ellie Maynard and I live at 9 Woods Grove Road. I'm in 3rd grade at Booth Hill School. I think the Board of Aldermen should fully fund the education budget so we don't lose our teachers. I don't think the kids here tonight should be up past their bedtime asking you to care about our education. Thank you. Have a good night.
Hugh Barrington.
Little ones are hard to follow. So I wasn't planning on speaking tonight either. I've sent a couple letters and apologies. I haven't been able to be here in person to support until now. I think you'd have a lot more parents here if they could. We all know kids are super involved, but one thing that, has struck me since COVID is how much we expect our children to endure that we as adults won't. We absolutely put our foot down. We tell our kids that they should never get upset, that they have to always behave. And yet I know myself, and I'm sure many other people can think of times when they themselves have not behaved and no one holds them accountable or wags their finger. And I think this is another one of those situations where we're expecting children to sit in classrooms of 30 plus people, but would you sit in an office crammed in with 30 people every day for 180 days that they're in school? And also, the elementary schools have no air conditioning. So let's add that on top of it with all those people. And paper to write on. Could you do your jobs without paper or pencils? What about your support staff? What if, and I know even at my job now, staffs are cut and adults are drawing the line. They're saying, we're not going to do more. We're doing, but these children and these teachers, they don't have that option. They have to go in, and no matter what their class size is, that's their job. And so I think looking at it from the classroom perspective is great. It can be difficult when it may not directly affect us, when we're not in the classroom every day to live it or feel it. But I really urge you, if you can't go to the classroom, to put yourself in those shoes in your life and think of how you would do without those items. I also want to say that I know myself and other parents, we fund through the PTO, a lot of the deficits that are not able to be funded with the Board of Education budget every year, and it increases year after year how much we contribute to the expense of, cultural enrichment, so that what are these kids even able to write about? And these kids, these teachers, they do a fantastic job, but I'd rather see the PTO raising money for guest speakers than pencils and paper and Chromebooks and everything else. It's not, it shouldn't be that way. And the one thing that parents cannot contribute extra to out of our own pocket is the salary for the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Priscilla Miranda.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Maranta, 221 Meadow Street. I wasn't planning to speak, but I felt compelled to, first of all, because this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and there are so many educators here off hours to show you how important this is. But beyond that, what I'm here for is, as a professional who works in a multi-billion-dollar company, who manages their budgets and manages operations and has to make those tough decisions. I say to you, education is not it. Because when you look at the budget each year, you have to make difficult choices line by line, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, what you're going to see is year by year an erosion. And those trends will show you those dips, 66, 87, 54, 26. We're going to go down. And I want to say to you, as the ghost of Christmas present or future, excuse me, I come from New York City. We moved here because we were told how wonderful Shelton was. And we found that to be true. And I want to say that it's been absolutely wonderful. But we know what big class sizes are. We put our kids in private school because of it. And even there, it was large. And I want to tell you, matriculation rate of 88%, it's going to go down to 40%. You start hitting 31 in a classroom, those numbers, what happens is that the children can't make the connection needed to the teacher. Because what really matters is the trust the child has with the teacher, and that is given through time. Time is given by less children in a room. When they have that time to be safe and say they are not able to understand, that is when growth truly happens. And what you will see is that these children have dreams to go on and move and do these wonderful things. The highest compliment that you can have, and I've seen it here in Shelton, all these children that came up and became teachers because Shelton has done education well. And we should continue to keep doing education well. And I ask you, I implore you, do not let this town change to the point where it's just like New York City, where it's okay, where a teacher may not be able to talk to a child every day, knows their name, knows their grades, but those are the kids that are most at risk when they are not the ones to raise their hand and say, I'm alone. I need help. We are going to slowly erode that connection between the teachers and the students, and we need not to. I am on the SIS PTO board. We've done so much fundraising. And I thank all the parents for being so helpful for that. I just want to say, people are hungry for educational situations. We've donated over $5,000 this year for educational pursuits in regards to field trips. We've done a book fair where we have the opportunity to donate back $3,000 because we work so hard. So I want you to understand that I see the struggle to keep this budget balanced. I see it, I appreciate it, and I thank you for your hard work. But when you're looking at where to make those cuts, I beseech you to please fully fund the budget, if not even take into consideration inflation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Scott Smith.
Scott Smith, I'm a board originally. Okay. This room is pretty full, but it is just a fraction of the people. All right. I nearly had to, do something unthinkable just to get here tonight because my two kids need me as a parent right now. All right. And this is 1 in 10 or maybe 1 in 20 of the people that feel like the education budget needs to be fully funded. This pendulum is swung all the way over here. All right. And you guys, you represent us. Okay. You are the legislative body in this town, in this city. All right. Your constituents are saying our kids need more than you are providing. And they're saying it very loudly. Right? I don't know how much you're on social media. It is an absolute firestorm out there. All right, we got the yard signs, the whole thing. This thing is swinging this way. Okay, now the other argument is usually, we have a large senior population on fixed incomes. The way the tax code is set up, and Eric, you and I have had this conversation before. If you are an elderly person who is, maybe has a fixed income, is below that SALT tax line, okay? The federal government takes your money and goes down to Washington. You guys need to vote to keep that money that would normally go down to Washington here in Shelton. It would make a world of difference. It is not time to horse around with this anymore. I have a kindergartner and a freshman. Right, the kindergartner, the jury is very much out. The freshman needs supports, right? And they are not being provided. Also, this district compared to other districts fundraises you to death. All right, I get so many emails saying, hey, we need money for this, we need money for that from the school. And I know what it looks like from in other districts. The pendulum is swung too far. And you guys need to bring it back. Do you guys really want to be the anti-education alderman? I mean, is that really what you're contemplating? You are our voice in this experimental democracy. Right? Please vote with your heart. All right. Profiles encourage. I'm sure we all read it in high school, right? Right. This is one of those moments. You guys have to stand up for the kids that don't have votes. All right? Because for every nuclear family of 4, there's 2 votes, but there's 4 bodies that you need to take care of. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Richard Catano.
Good evening, Victor Catano, 114 Park Avenue. So I'm coming to bring a different perspective to you, a perspective of a school administrator. I am a private school CFO. And I moved here to Shelton because I grew up in New York City, and my only alternative to not die or be killed or run into gangs was to go to a private school. And thankfully, I was able to secure funding to do that. Because of the educational opportunities that I've been afforded, I've learned that education is the great equalizer in this country, and it's really the only hope that our kids have. We always talk about how if this generation only did this, if this generation only did that, but we're responsible for making sure that our up and coming generation has all of the resources that it needs. And as someone who has to balance budgets for a living, I don't envy your task. I fully understand that challenge. But if, without being presumptuous, I have not been to a finance meeting. I only came because my wife, who is a teacher, told me that I needed to be here and voice my opinions. And I'd be a dead man if I didn't come. And I also love the teachers. I've had a daughter graduate from Shelton High last year. I had another son who's going to graduate soon. I've got a kindergartner and a soon to be kindergartner. And I just stay up a little bit at night thinking about what that's going to look like as my younger children progress. And from that perspective, one of the things that one of the rules of thumb that I always try to follow when I balance my own budgets is no matter what it is that the deficit is looking like, my priority is always to not impact the program. And I think as people balancing the budget, you know exactly what that is. We try to preserve the program, and we cut bone before we cut the meat of the program. And again, I haven't been to one of your meetings, so I don't know what that looks like for you. But I just wanted to make sure that you heard me share that opinion. And I just thank you for your work. And I don't know how I can personally help, but if you ever need a different perspective from a private institution eye, because you've seen everything in the public eye, right? I'd be happy to be invited anywhere to maybe offer a fresh set of eyes. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Maria, she'll say it up there.
Good evening. I apologize for my English. My English is so bad, but when you speak, it's not. I hope so I can understand me. I working in a kindergarten. I work in preschool, and it's so hard working with 70 children. We can put in the carpet and circle time is not easy for the teacher. I help the teacher, but we can control 16 children. I can believe it. One teacher can control 30 children. Kindergarten is coming from preschool. Kindergarten needs a time with the teacher. When you learn, we have a best for the student. I hope so. Say the budget, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we've come to the end of the speakers. If there's anybody else wishing to speak, if not, or I'll call for the adjournment. On behalf of the board, we thank you very much for taking the time to come out on this. It is absolutely an important issue, and we certainly appreciate your input and the time for you to come out and speak. Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Aye. We are. are adjourned. Again, thank you very much, ladies. Thanks to our young speakers too.